verse 11. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So, this is now the first sign. I believe all the Gospels, all of them, were written historically in a historical order. So people say, but he told this parable there, and in another Gospel it sounds as if it's a different place. Well, I don't know, sometimes the logic of people. It's a little bit like this. So, if I am teaching you this now, right? If for some other reason this material gets lost and I need to redo this, I can do it in another place. I can do it in a year's time from now. In a year's time from now, I might learn something now. In 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, I might have finished it all and I feel, okay, I want to redo some of it. Then that redoing in 5 years or 10 years from now, if someone then writes a book about me doing this, and he's saying, okay, he did it here on Penang Hill on the 15th of June 2025. And then someone years later, 10 years later, when I redo it and he wrote the book and he chooses to write about that, me doing it, then who's going to be wrong? Is the one not going to be historically correct, the other one historically correct? No, both are historically correct because I did it twice. I can do it 3 times. I can do it I've taught in the Gospel of John now, I don't know how many times, right? I preached throughout the whole book in the church, in my church there in Russia, which I pastored. I've taught through the whole book in the school where I taught. I taught through the whole book in a Bible school. I'm going to teach through the whole book now. I taught other people through this whole book. So I've taught through this book a number of times. And every time it's going to sound a little bit different. Lots of the things can be the same, but the setting is going to be different. So are you going to say, oh, if the one guy said he did it in such a setting, another guy in such a setting, then they are lying? It's not there. No, I did it more than once. I mean, Jesus was walking and teaching them for 3 years. It's not like if he woke up in the morning and said, okay, I'm going to tell these parables today, and I'm only going to ever tell them once and only today, never again. Now, if Jesus did that, then we know how short the Gospels are, right? Then he could have told all these parables literally in a week's time, and it's done and dusted. What the heck did he do for the other 3 years? Yeah, sure. He would have told the thing. They would have asked him. He would have told it again. He would have been in another setting with other people. He would be telling it again. So the one writer takes it here, the other writer takes it there. Okay? So here, please, all of the Gospels, therefore, I believe all of them and all these stories were in a historical order. And so I believe this as well. When it speaks of this is the first miracle, Cana in Galilee, this is, I see as the first miracle. Okay? First, and it's called a sign. The sign, why? Because of ultimately in how John is using it as proof of, okay, like in a court of law, is going to say, my signs will speak of me. They are proof, not miracle. My sign is. The sign is a proof of who I am. Okay, that is a very important thing. Okay, that is why it's called a sign. And but the other thing that's very important in this is that it's glory. So why does turning water into wine? I mean, I guess David Copperfield and some of those people can turn. People sleight of hand can turn water into wine, because ultimately not turning the water into wine, they're just swapping the 2 bottles around, the water bottle for the wine bottle kind of idea. And you're like, oh wow, okay, right? I mean, that's how they do it. It's a little bit more difficult to swap out jars, and it's even a lot more difficult to swap out a whole well full of the stuff. Okay, that is kind of, I don't know if it's even, I mean, in that sense possible, but with these magicians kind of idea. So yeah, I don't exactly know. I can't now think if it's possible or not, but I can imagine it's going to be pretty much impossible. And the people saw it and they believed. So yeah, sure, His glory, God. What did God do? Make on the 3rd day? He made the sea and everything. He split it all, and the plants, the green land. And now here, wine as well is kind of a plant. So you have that kind of a connection with Genesis. And then ultimately, as Jesus, now he's not like God out of nothing, he's creating out of something. So there's water, but he's changing the substance totally of the water. Water and wine has nothing in common with each other. Okay, if you know chemistry, you know what wine consists of, which elements, and which elements water consists. No, yes, sure, there's hydrogen and oxygen in both. Okay, but wine has carbon inside it as well. Okay, so there's more there. So you kind of need to not just change. You need to change the whole chemistry here to get it. And but yes, it's not totally out of nothing. It's out of something, but it's different. Okay, so that miracle, then the sign it shows. And the other thing is, understandably, is the disciples saw this and they believed. Why would they believe? It's a sign, and they believe because seeing is believing. At this stage, still seeing is believing. At the end of John is going to say, no, that's not good. I've mentioned that as well a number of times. But the disciples believed. And even then, though they believed because they saw, but they did not understand yet. They did not understand at all yet what the heck this even means. Okay, as we're going to see later on in the same chapter, there are lots of people believed in Jesus, but he didn't entrust himself to them. Okay, so they do believe, but do they really believe and understand what they believe? No, I don't think they did. But this miracle, the sign, okay, not miracle, the sign that Jesus here did, is then a fulfillment as well of prophecy from when the Messiah comes. There will be an overabundance, wine, lo and behold. It was very important to the people, unlike what some denominations these days teach, it is a sin to drink wine. It was very important to them. It was a big part of all these kinds of occasions. God gave it to people for these kinds of occasions, and not only. And so when the Messiah comes, there will be an overabundance. There is this overabundance. And if it was the water in the well, then the overabundance is even more. So I kind of lean towards the water that it was from the well. Verse 12. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there for a few days. So now, leaving Cana and Galilee, he goes to Capernaum, and with his mother, his brothers were there as well, understandably disciples, because they all would go to, would have been there at the wedding. If the mother is there and the son, then the other brothers would have been there. And as well, actually, the other kind of thing is, like, you know, unlike what the Roman Catholics believe, this is not just his cousins. I know that, like, say, for example, in again, certain cultures, there's no concept of culture. They're just like in Russia, brat, dvayurutny brat, and they just say, this is my brat. And like, so, okay, which brother is this now? Your cousin or your blood brother kind of idea. You always need to they would have used a different word here. They're not using that word. They're using, so this is clearly that Jesus had other brothers and sisters. Well, actually, his other brothers, right? And this is not just any. So Mary she was not a perpetual virgin like the Roman Catholics try to say. I have no idea. I mean, okay, maybe because they don't think as having intercourse is a good thing. So Mary then having intercourse with Joseph, having more kids would be a bad kind of thing. Well, why would that be bad if God made it? Right? God made it good. So I don't know why they would be to just justify their fact that the priest mustn't get married or something like that. So the priest won't take their belongings and the belongings will stay in the church. Nah. She had other kids, and they stayed there for a few days. Now here is as well only the first mention of a few days. So it's not like on the third day, on the fourth day, for 3 days they stayed there, a few days. Okay, so this is now kind of not that important anymore. It's just so for a number of days they stayed there. Okay, and that is then the first sign that Jesus did there, turning water into wine.